here in America, and that's of Native Americans. Now, when this article came out from NBC News and other news outlets had reporting on this discovery, I sent this to Dr. David Imhotep, and we discussed it, because if this is true, and if humans did break apart this Macedon skeleton 130,000 years ago, well, this confirms this African presence here going back tens of thousands of years, even before Native Americans existed. All right. So we talk about the Olmecs and the Mandinka Egyptian Olmec connection, because the Olmecs, which are in Mexico, which were in Mexico, going back to about 1500 BC or so, around that period of time, this was a mixture of this was a mixture of ancient Egyptians, the Mandinka from West Africa, and Native Americans. Talks about this, as well as Runoko Rashidi talks about them as well in the article that Runoko wrote for AtlantaBlackStar.com that we cite. But Dr. David Imhotep on page 82 of the first Americans or Africans documented evidence said a major ethnic group among the ancient Egyptian Nubians were the Manding people, an original Niger-Congo homeland in the general vicinity of the Upper Nile is probably as good a hypothesis as any for the origin of the Manding. The Proto-Manding migration had to have taken place during the African Aqualithic period. That was a wet period in Africa that lasted thousands of years, at a time when the Sahara was fertile and had river systems and Great Lakes. The Nile flowed, the Nile flowed from south to north and emptied into the Atlantic Ocean during very ancient times. This would have enabled East Africans direct access to the Atlantic Ocean. The longer route would be to sail the Nile River north to the Mediterranean and then head west to the Atlantic Ocean. When the Manding reached Central America and began mixing with the local population, they were labeled Olmecs. The Olmecs were supposedly a mixture of the Manding or Mandinka, the Americans or American Indians. Do not forget that the Manding made up the base of the Olmecs, so the Egyptians, the Manding, and the base of the Olmecs are related to each other. That's from page 82 of the first Americans or Africans documented evidence. We deal with the Druids and St. Patrick in Ireland, and how the Druids are dealing with a watered-down teaching coming out of ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. We look at the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, and the Spanish Granadan War in 1492, and the Moors losing control of their last stronghold of Granada, January 2nd, 1492. Okay, we deal with all of that history. We look at ancient civilizations like Nubia, Ta-Nehisi, ancient Kemet, Carthage and the Carthaginian Wars, and Hannibal Barca. We look at Egypt, what's known as Egypt of the West, and the African influence here in America. The Tekken is an ancient African symbol that comes from the mythology of Asar, Auset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus. There were about 1,200 Tekkenu all throughout ancient Kemet. Today, there are less than a dozen. There are three ancient Tekkenu or obelisks that were taken from Egypt, and they were taken into London, England, New York City, and Paris, France. Ancient Egyptians called obelisk Tekkenu, and they were also used to tell the time in the past. Their pinnacles were basically covered in gold to reflect the sunlight. Historians say the obelisks represented immortality and eternity, and their long structure helped connect the heavens and the earth. Currently, Cleopatra's Needle is the name given to the three ancient Egyptian obelisks, one in New York City, one in London, England, one in Paris, France. Okay, there's an article called Cleopatra's Needle, how 3 ancient Egyptian obelisks ended up in New York City, London, and Paris, France, from face-to-faceafrica.com. Check that out. So we talk about the first Holy Trinity of Asar, Auset, and Heru. Some of this information may go outside the circumference of your own awareness. Just because you never heard it before, disagree with it, does not mean it's not true. It just means you have to do some research to understand what I'm talking about. The Greeks called them Osiris, Isis, and Horus. There were approximately 1,200 Tekhenu built in ancient Kemet in ancient times, but only about a dozen are found in Egypt today. Many of the Tekhenu removed from Egypt are now in Istanbul, Turkey, London, England, Paris, France, Berlin, Germany, New York, Rome, Italy, and Vatican City, and elsewhere throughout the world. The Tekhenu are now called obelisks by their new owners, and few people know their origin or that they symbolize the resurrection of the African king Asar, who the Greeks called Osiris. Read page 17 of Egypt on the Potomac by Tony Browder. And I just interviewed Tony Browder in April of 2023. We talked about why Nile Valley civilization history is so important. Now, the word Mason, M-A-S-O-N, is derived from the Latin words mass and sun. Mason means child of light and expresses the desire to pursue light, which is a metaphor for the sun, which symbolizes knowledge. The term child of light, or sons and daughters of light, was first used to identify students who had completed 42 years of study in the temples of ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. Many Masonic temples were modeled after the temples of ancient Kemet, places where light or knowledge was imparted in a series of steps or degrees. So the book Egypt on the Potomac by Tony Browder is one of the books we use in the class as well. We also use Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization as well. We use that also. Okay, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, Egypt on the Potomac. We use one of Renoko Rashidi's books, Black Star, The African Presence in Early Europe. So you don't have to buy any of these books. We show you the text right on the screen, okay, for most of these books. You can get them for your own personal library if you want to, but you don't have to feel the need to purchase the books just to follow along in class. All right, now let's continue here. Masonic temples are, so the concept of going to an institution of higher learning and getting your credentials in a series of steps or degrees, that comes out of the Nile Valley region of Africa. That comes out of ancient Kemet in the Nile Valley region of Africa. That comes from us. All right, so oftentimes when I hear people say, well, college is not for me and things like this, I mean, we created the first institutions of higher learning that modern colleges are patterned after and influenced by. And then when we look at the universities that existed in Europe, University of Toledo, University of Barcelona, University of Salamanca in Spain, they're going to be either built by African Moors or heavily influenced by the teachings of the Moors. And a lot of their first professors are going to be African Moors also. Now, Masonic temples are considered houses of light or temples of learning. The term Mason or Child of Light is a direct reference to the highest degree of the Kemetic education system. The 33 degrees of instruction within Freemasonry represent a fraction of the 360 degrees of instruction that comprised the Kemetic system of education. Yet with less than 10% of the wisdom of ancient Kemet, Freemasons have held positions of influence and power throughout the world for over 200 years. Read page 33 of Egypt on the Potomac by Tony Browder. So we deal with going from the virgin Auset, who gives birth to the baby Heru on December 25th, to the worship of the Black Madonna and Child, which was worshipped all throughout Europe. The Black Madonna and Child was worshipped all throughout Europe. And Probably the European country that has the greatest representation of the Black Madonna Child would be France, with about 300 representations, statues, and paintings of the Black Madonna Child. We look at some of the deities, some of the Neteru coming out of ancient Kemet, Ma'at as well. We look at things like the judgment scene that includes Anpu and Dehuti, also Asar, who sits on the throne of judgment. So we go through and look at history. We look at things like historical figures like Bishop Nicholas, who becomes a saint. And Bishop Nicholas was of African descent. And Bishop Nicholas was the real life inspiration for the secular character of Santa Claus, which comes from the mythological character also of Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas means Saint Nicholas in Dutch, and Sinterklaas we see is worshipped, is revered amongst the Dutch. We see this in Holland and the Netherlands, and there's a celebration of Sinterklaas in the beginning of November, okay, and it goes through December, and they commemorate Sinterklaas along with Zwarte Piet, who was a Moor. Zwarte Piet means Black Pete in Dutch. It commemorates Sinterklaas coming in from Spain on a steamship, a steamboat, with Zwarte Piet, Black Pete. Okay. So this once again also deals with the history of the Moors throughout Europe. We look at why Christmas is celebrated on December 25th, because nowhere in the biblical text does it state that Yeshua, Jesus the Christ, was born on December 25th. We look at the film Black Panther. The film Black Panther deals with African culture, African history, African language, African spiritual systems. And the Panther Deity Bast, who watches over the people of Wakanda, and we know in ancient Kemet, cats were looked at as a protector. Well, the Panther Deity Bast comes from the Neter, or the goddess Bastet, that was worshipped in ancient Egypt, especially during the Second Dynasty around 2890 BCE, before the Common Era. And she was worshipped in the form of a lioness at first, and then later as a cat. She was the goddess of warfare in Lower Kemet, Lower Egypt. And the film Black Panther incorporates 11 different African cultures. We see different African deities represented in the Black Panther comic book and in the nation of Wakanda, the fictitious nation of Wakanda. Now, when we look at Wakandan religion and its tribes, the religion of the Wakandan people first developed during the pilgrimage to the land. In their conflict, the originators, who were the gods of Wakanda, formed from the heroes of humans within the tribe. Ascending to the status of a god, these heroes became the Orisha. Now, the Orisha are the names of the deities in the spiritual system practiced by the Yoruba in present-day Nigeria, and that's the spiritual system of Ifa, okay? So the Orisha, these are emissaries, these are deities, and they're helpers of the supreme being in Ifa, known as Olodumare. But these heroes in Wakanda became known as the Orisha, or Orisha, taking the names of Koku, Thoth, which Thoth was the Greek name for Dehuti, Bast or Bastet, Mojaji, Ptah. Ptah is the creator in ancient Kemet, the Neter that's looked at as the creator, Ptah, and Niami. The Orishas or Orishas origins date back to the ancient Egyptian beings known as the Ennead. Well, Ennead in Greek means 9, and Ennead refers to the original 9 Orisha. Okay, I'm sorry, the original 9 Neteru in ancient Kemet. Now, in addition to the development of these gods, the people of Wakanda became segmented into various cults that worshipped various animal deities of the area. The most famous coats included the Black Panther coat and the white gorilla coat. So Umbaku is from, in the movie, Umbaku is from the white gorilla coat. The 18 tribes, because there are 18 different tribes that make up the people of Wakanda. The 18 tribes in total developed in the country and include the lion coat, crocodile coat, and hyena coat. The Inuit means group of 9 in Greek. In ancient Kemet, they were called the Bastet. The 9 Neteru were Atum, which was the sun, Atum, or you may see Atin, Shu, which means air, Tefnut, moisture, Geb was earth, and Nut, sky, Asar, who the Greeks called Osiris, Auset, who the Greeks called Isis, Seth, and Nephthys. These were the original 9 Neteru, or the Inuit. Okay. One of the books we use in the class is also Ancient Egypt by Lorna Oakes and Lucia Galen. All right. Pages 274 through 277, they lay out a lot of the different Neteru, or deities, in ancient Kemet and their attributes. So we deal with Hannibal Barca, the Battle of Cannae, 216 BC, the Punic Wars, all different types of history like that. Carthage, which existed from 813 BCE to 146, because Carthage is destroyed, 146 BC, because Carthage is destroyed by Rome. We deal with ancient Nubia as well, which is about 4500 BC to 500 AD, ancient Nubia. And we go through and look at this history chronologically. There's a timeline of history that we look at, and we look at what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. You have to study the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, which begins in 711 AD, when the African Moors go in from Morocco into the Iberian Peninsula, today known as Spain and Portugal, led by General Tariq ibn Ziyad. Okay, and then we go through and analyze the transatlantic slave trade as well. And Christopher Columbus is crucial to understanding the expansion of the transatlantic slave trade and his 4 voyages. And he set sail August 3rd, 1492 on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. And this is the same year, some months after the African Moors are expelled. Okay, they lose control of their last stronghold, which was Grenada, January 2nd, 1492. African slaves were first brought to the New World shortly after its discovery or uncovery and colonization by Christopher Columbus. And they could be found, Africans could be found on the island of Hispaniola, a site of present-day Haiti, as early as 1501. Upon his arrival in the Bahamas, he lands in the Bahamas October 12, 1492. Columbus himself captured 7 of the natives for, quote unquote, their education on his return to Spain. However, the slave trade proper, according to a lot of sources, they look at the slave trade, what they call the slave trade proper, beginning in 1518, when the first direct black cargo from Africa landed in the West Indies. Now, that's referring to the Asiento de Negros, signed by King Charles V of Spain, August of 1518, which gave a license to slave trading nations and slave trading countries to provide Spanish colonies in Spain with enslaved Africans. Now, the importation of African slaves to work in the Americas was the inspiration of the Spanish bishop Bartolomé de las Casas, whose support of black slavery was motivated by humanitarian concerns. Bartolomé de las Casas argued that the enslavement of Africans and even some whites, proving that in the early period slavery did not operate according to exclusive racial demarcations, he argued that enslaving Africans as opposed to Native Americans would save the indigenous American Indian populations, which were not only dying out, but engaging in large-scale resistance as they opposed their excessively harsh conditions. As a result, King Charles V, who was then King of Spain, agreed to the Asiento de Negros, or slave trading license, He signed this in August of 1518, which later represented the most coveted prize in European wars, as it gave to those who possessed it a monopoly in slave trafficking. Now, the widespread expansion of the oceanic slave trade can be attributed to the enormous labor demanded by sugarcane, one of the first and most successful agricultural crops to be cultivated by African slaves. The earliest lucrative Spanish sugar plantations were in the Caribbean and West Indies on the islands of Haiti, Cuba, and Jamaica, while Portugal controlled large areas of Brazil. However, Spanish and Portuguese domination of the slave trade was soon challenged by other Europeans, including the British. One of the earliest adventurers, Sir John Hawkins, undertook his first voyage between 1562 and 1563 as a direct consequence of his gains, and was knighted by Queen Elizabeth I. Okay, so this is just a sample of the type of information we get deep into in this 12-week online course that I teach, called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, so I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, all of this. I share excerpts of interviews I've done with the historians, with the scholars as well. You can, if you learned anything from this broadcast, from this brief preview, register for the 12-week online course at our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. As soon as you register, you can start watching content. Our next class is Saturday, July 15th, 2023, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You do not have to be in class live. You don't have to be in class when we're live. We do the sessions live, then all the sessions are archived. So, because we record all the sessions. About 10 minutes after we finish the class, it's available to watch on replay. All right. So as soon as you register, you can watch the class we did July 8th and the class we did July 1st. All right. And then Sundays, I teach Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. Okay. 1800 to 1968. If you want to register for, if you want to pay for the classes through Cash App, you can do that. Just email me to let me know what the money's for. Okay. It's because I need to know what it's for. I need to know, because if you want me to register you in the class, I need your email address also. All right. So you can email us at ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, or just click right here on the website, contact the African History Network. We have our PayPal, Cash App information here. Click on it. This helps us keep doing the research as well. Yeah, our official Cash App tag is $ the AHN show, SHOW. When you go to it, it says Michael. These other ones here, I've identified 5 fake African History Network accounts I'm trying to shut down. Cash App is not cooperating with me. I launched an investigation. I had them launch an investigation late last year. I had to follow with them again because they don't get back with me. Okay, I don't know what the problem is with Cash App. They have like really poor customer service when it comes to investigating fake accounts that have been set up. All right, but we have that information here at our website, theafricanhistorynetwork.com. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. Hopefully you learned something from today's radio show, our show, as well as this preview of this 12-week online course that I teach. Be sure to register for the online class. Also, follow us on our fan page, The African History Network. Give us a thumbs up on this broadcast. Follow us on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, on YouTube as well, and my personal Facebook page, Michael Imhotep on Facebook, and as well as the Michael Imhotep Show. That's our other Facebook page. Okay. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next week. Peace.